Frankie Lymon was one of the more underrated talents of his generation. The leader of Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers, he was a popular doo-wop singer who tragically left us too soon. While he was famous for his catchy songs, he also had a troubled personal life. Join Facts First to learn about Frankie Lymon's life and career and how he had 3 wives at once, complicating his death. Franklin Joseph Lymon was born September 30th, 1942 in Harlem, New York. His father was a truck driver and his mother a maid. His parents were also singers in a local gospel group, and this struck a chord with Frankie. He had an interest in singing from an early age. While his parents' experience with gospel inspired his own singing, the Lymon family struggled financially, and his parents couldn't make a living solely from their music. They worked odd jobs in addition to their main job in order to survive. As a young boy, he worked for a grocer to earn extra pocket change, yet he had an insatiable thirst to pursue a singing career. As he came of age, he decided to start singing in a relatively new genre at the time. Doo-wop was becoming popular in the 50s, and he decided to pursue a career as a doo-wop singer. He eventually befriended the Puerto Rican singer Herman Santiago and joined his band, which became known as the Ermines and the Premiers. They began performing in local talent shows and in clubs. They were slowly gaining popularity, but they were far from fame. They needed to come up with a song that could match the likes of popular doo-wop songs of the time. This finally happened in the mid-1950s, and it all started with a series of seemingly endless love letters that came their way. Why do fools fall in love? Herman Santiago received many letters from one of his neighbors. The neighbor had received many love letters from his girlfriend and showed them to Herman and to Frankie Lymon. Frankie and Herman analyzed these letters together and decided to write a song based on what they read in them. But instead of creating a song about the joys of falling in love, they wanted to create one about the foolishness of it. The song was called Why Do Fools Fall in Love, and it became the band's biggest hit. They changed their name to the Teenagers and were now collectively known as Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers. The song eventually topped the Billboard R&B charts and remained at the #1 spot for 5 weeks. It's still remembered as the best song that Frankie and the Teenagers recorded and one of the most famous doo-wop songs of all time. It also became the title of a film about Frankie Lymon's life, starring Lorenz Tate, Vivica A. Fox, Layla Rashawn, and Halle Berry. The song tries to explain the mystery of why anyone would want to fall in love. While we might be used to such songs today, this poetic cynicism was rather interesting for the otherwise innocent 1950s. Nevertheless, Why Do Fools Fall in Love was by no means a sad song. It was melodious and upbeat. It brought Frankie's golden voice to a wider audience, and it won him scores of fans across the country. It especially made him popular with the ladies, and he was now receiving more attention from women who wanted to be with him. This video is brought to you by Established Titles. Have you ever been interested in being a lord or a lady? With Established Titles, now you can become one. For real. You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, etc. You can even get it on your dating profiles. You can purchase title packs that give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland. With the purchase, you'll receive an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our little Facts First kingdom. They plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running an early Black Friday sale, plus if you use the code FV10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/FV10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. Frankie Lymon's career. While Why Do Fools Fall in Love remains his best-known song, he still won acclaim for his other releases and was by no means a one-hit wonder. With the Teenagers, his other popular songs included I Want You to Be My Girl, Goody Goody, I Promise to Remember, Who Can Explain, I'm Not a Juvenile Delinquent, and The ABCs of Love. All these songs were hits, and almost all near the top of the charts. The radio played them again and again, and youngsters across America memorized the catchy lyrics. It was clear Frankie Lymon was becoming a star in his own right. The band broke up while touring Europe in 1957, and Frankie decided to pursue his own solo career. He did have a few successes, and his most notable success as a solo artist was his cover of the song Little Bitty Pretty One. He was still a huge star and adored by fans, but he wasn't as successful in his solo career as he was with the teenagers. Frankie Lymon's death. In his teenage years, Frankie Lymon became addicted to heroin, which was sadly the fate of many artists of his generation. Eventually, he became so addicted, his performances weren't great, and he had lost much of the charisma and stamina needed to succeed at performing live music. Professionals in the industry took notice, and he began performing less and recording less. His career had gone up fast, but sadly it went downhill fast as well. He briefly did reunite with the teenagers, but to no avail. While his songs were still relatively popular, there were now other artists taking his place. At age 25, Frankie died from a heroin overdose. He was found dead in his grandmother's home in Harlem. He was one of the early examples of a great artist who died young, but sadly his life wasn't immortalized as much as many other artists were. That was until the subject of his estate came up, and there was a trio fighting for what they claimed was theirs. Frankie Lymon had 3 wives at once, complicating his death. Frankie was known as a womanizer and continued to have relations with beautiful women even as he became an adult and his career was headed downwards. Upon his death, there were 3 women vying to inherit what he left behind. All 3 claimed to be Frankie's wives. Their story and their relations with Frankie Lymon became the basis of the movie Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Frankie, at different times in his life, got married to 3 different women with whom he had relations and never divorced any of them. The 3 were the singer Zola Berry, Elizabeth Waters, and Amira Eagle. These were all older women, and during his lifetime, he claimed that he loved older women and had no interest in dating women around his age. The 3 women all had to go to court to fight for his estate. A court ultimately determined which of the 3 wives was most entitled to Frankie's estate. Zora Taylor wasn't able to prove strong evidence that she was married to Frankie. At first, Elizabeth Waters won the court case, but after an appeal against her, Amira Eagle ended up winning the estate. These court cases began in the 80s and went for years. These shenanigans have often overshadowed Frankie's career, but you have to look back and remember that his career, though short-lived, produced some of the best doo-wop songs we've ever heard. He also came at a time when black artists were entering the mainstream in an America trying to fight against segregation. He was one of the first singers to dance with a white woman on live TV and helped break the racial barrier. Now it's time to hear from you. Are you a fan of Frankie Lymon? Did you know about his 3 wives and the fight over his estate? Let us know in the comments section below.